Well, hi there, and congratulations on choosing to take control of your destiny. I am Nikki Sinclair, and it's such a privilege to be able to spend a bit of time with you during the summit, teaching you about something that's really close to my heart and something I've learned a lot about in the past 30 years, and that's your personal financial skills. I think one very important aspect of taking control of your future is money, something that people don't seem to talk about. Well, I must say, I would rather be with you in person, but we do have to take advantage of being able to work from home. And I thought we'd take the opportunity of just spending the afternoon out in the garden. So let's enjoy the next little bit of time together. And I'm hoping to open up some opportunities for you to see how easy it is for anyone to take control, and if you choose to reach financial freedom where money and finances are no longer a stress in your life. I certainly think that people are not aware of how easy it is to take control. It's something that you're not something you're not taught about at school. And probably 95% of people live in debt without knowing how to get out of debt, without knowing sometimes how to get into debt. And that results in a lot of stress and fear, both for you and your family. So what I've realized over the past 30 years is that people tend to just earn and spend, and that's all they seem to know about their finances. So if we just take this as a symbol of our lives, and everything that our expenses involved, and lives full of expenses, one of the biggest expenses we have is tax. Think about other expenses you have. Your housing or your home, whether it's rental or paying off your house, is another huge expense. Your car is one of your biggest expenses, either transport or a car loan, and all the maintenance and insurance that go with it. One of the other big expenses, of course, is your food. And then there are lots of other things where you spend your money, whether it's on your toiletries or your entertainment or your clothes and your holiday, buying gifts. Maybe you've got a shoe fetish and you've got a cupboard full of shoes. You can't resist going out every paycheck to buy yet another pair. Eating out in restaurants. A lot of us pay a lot of debt which goes out before we even can enjoy any of our money ourselves. And then, of course, rates, utilities, and everything that we just need. So we have no shortage of expenses. And what I've just found is that people have no idea of what they are spending every month on their food and clothing, etc. All they do is get the income in, spend, and often end up with more month at the end of their money. So the only thing that we can change really, or control it, is how much we are putting in, or how much salary or income we are earning in order to cover all of these expenses. Now, some of us are earning a little bit of money, and others might be earning a little bit more money. But however, whatever happens is that once our money goes into our pot, we find that very quickly it seems to not last, and it drains out from all of those different aspects and expenses that we have. So I guess that's one advantage of being able to do this outside. The problem is that we don't know how to stop this ever-ending flood going out. And one of the most important things of learning about our money is just that you need to know what your income is, what your expenses are, and learn how to spend less than you earn. But today what I'm going to share with you is 7 different steps or keys that you can take to reach financial freedom. And they really are pretty simple and straightforward. And notice I said simple, they're not easy. If you're wanting to take control of your finances, you need to be dedicated and committed. So I think what we need to do is start off by just clearing your mind. A lot of you have got preconceived ideas about what money means. You might have grown up with parents or in an environment where you learned that money doesn't grow on trees and there isn't enough money and we can't afford different things. So just get that out of your mind for now, and know that no matter how much debt you're in, no matter how little income you're getting, no matter what your expenses might be at this stage of your life, everybody can get out of debt and everyone can enjoy a future with financial freedom or financial independence, where money is not plaguing you and worrying you all the time. So let's have a look at 7 simple steps that you can take to get financial freedom. And the first one is knowing why. Why do you want more money? Why do you want to be financially free? And before you even start wondering how you can earn more or save more or invest, it's important to know where you are right now. What's your situation, your current situation? If you printed out the notes beforehand, you've got this in front of you. Otherwise, just take a minute just to put down this few thoughts. You can spend some more time later doing this exercise that is called a clarity tool, just to clarify where you are and where you want to go. So that's just really a starting point, where you are now financially, where you are in your life, where you are in terms of your happiness with your financial situation, and in anything in life. The rest of this summit is based on different aspects of controlling your destiny. So start with why for any of those aspects. Secondly, write down where you want to be. So if you don't have an idea of where you want to be, if you've got no dreams, then you're going to just be on this treadmill and aiming at nothing. So imagine where you would like to be in 5 years' time or in 1 year time. If you could take a seat and look back at the 2021 year and it's been your best year ever, what would that year look like? What would you be doing in your work? What would you be earning? What would your relationships be like? And that's just a nice way to get an idea of actually what are you heading for. Do it for 1 year, maybe in 5 years' time. Now for this particular session, we're looking at your finances. So think about, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? Where do you want to be in 10 years' time? And you're all in different stages, different ages. But even at your retirement, where would you like to be? How do you see yourself retiring in terms of your finances? What type of a house will you be living in? Which country? What type of a car will you be driving? What type of lifestyle will you be having? And that's a very important aspect, is not to stop dreaming, but to know where you want to be, which will give you something to aim at. And then the biggest and most important thing is why. Why do you want these things? Without a real reason, you're not going to be able to reach those dreams. So your why might be because you don't ever want to have to stress about money anymore. It might be because you want to be able to retire your parents early, live in a bigger house, drive fancy cars, travel more, send your children to private schooling, or just be able to live a lifestyle when you don't have to worry about money every month and how you're going to pay the bills. But that's really important. So I just urge you to spend quite a bit of time on wondering and having a real reason why you're wanting to get financially free. And these 7 steps are going to give you a very brief overview and a plan of how to get there and show you that it's achievable for anybody. All right, the second thing that is very important, number 2, on your notes you will see as well, is to know your current financial situation. I think I mentioned in the beginning that about 95% of people don't know what their financial situation is, and I think it's more a case of having your head buried in the sand because you don't really want to know. I also have found that a lot of women allow, or one of the spouses allow the other one to take control of the finances, and many women don't know anything about, or sometimes in case of a woman being in control of the finances, the other partner might not know anything about the finances, how much is paid towards the bills, how much debt there is in the home. And so again, I just think it's important for you to have open conversations with people that you're living in, especially your spouse, so that you can plan your future together. Very early on, we learned in our marriage to budget. I do have to admit that that word budget was more like a 4-letter word for me. I really didn't want to have to account for every penny that I spent. But I did learn that what was important was to be able to tell my money where to go rather than having money control me. And so you might not like the idea of budgeting, but it really is a first step and essential for you to start understanding where your money is going and how much is allocated. I will also send you a simple budget spreadsheet, so if you don't know where to start, you can find out how much goes into all of those main expense items that we chatted about at the beginning, how much you are spending on rent and food and clothing, etc. And then with your budget, you can see where most of your finances is going. And also, if you are spending more than you're earning, it gives you a starting point to see where can we start cutting back on. Having said that, I also just want to mention that some people are much more money oriented and organized, and they can put down their budget every month to the nth detail, and they quite enjoy that. Someone like me and other sort of more right brain sided people might prefer just to have some idea of where their spending is, and it became such an issue for me to do a monthly budget that I veered away from it. So depending on your personality, and also consider your spouse's personality, just keep that in mind. But the main thing is, just the first step is to get your spending underneath your income. And then also just also to know that it's important to allocate at least 10 or 15% of your income every month to saving. And people often tell me, well, they can't save because they don't have money to spend, to pay for their bills, let alone to save. But I would say that you are probably the most important aspect of your money circle. So pay yourself first. Before you even start paying your bills, put that 10 or 15% into a savings account or into an investment. Pay yourself first, and you'll see why it's going to make a huge difference later on as you start working towards a more stable financial future. Just a very brief explanation that I'm going to give you now is just your cash flow, which just gives you an idea of really your income statement and your balance sheet. Now, this was all Greek to me a long time ago, but I realized the importance of just understanding that we all earn an income and we all have expenses. And generally what happens is that our income comes in and we have expenses and the money flows out. Once we start earning and perhaps we get married, what happens is that we might buy a vehicle or a house, and those become extra expenses. So our income comes in, we've got liabilities to pay for, which become part of our expenses, and the money goes out. And so we are on this treadmill of always trying to earn more money to pay for our ever increasing needs, our increasing expenses. The more of a lifestyle we have, the more liabilities we obtain, the more our expenses are, and the more income we need. And so we get into this vicious cycle. All right, what we need to realize is that in order to retire or to be able to reach financial freedom, we need to build up our assets. And assets are anything where money is earning income or bringing money into your bank, rather than your expenses and your liabilities taking money out. So anything that is going to earn you something, maybe a property, maybe stocks and shares, something like a business that brings in money if you're not always working in that business, something like a laundromat. You might write a book and get some money coming in from your what is it called? Royalties, from your royalties. And those are all assets. So what is happening is money is coming in. So your aim in the long term is to start to build up your assets, and that's why we need to start saving money so that we can start buying and putting money into assets, which is going to generate income. And what will happen then is that those earn more income for you. And that's just the general idea, an overview of what we are aiming towards. So that's knowing your financial situation, understanding what your income statement is, what your income is and your expenses is, which is involved in your budget, as we mentioned, and then your balance sheet, what your assets and your liabilities are. And if you don't know what that is, I urge you again just to spend a bit of time by making a list of what your assets are. What are the things that are earning you money? It's a bit debatable whether your car and your home that you're living in is an asset, unless it's actually a taxi that you're earning money from, or a home that you're Airbnb-ing and you're earning an income from that. But you might have an investment property, a unit or two, or something that you're renting out. And then, of course, on the stock exchange, you could be invested in equities, stocks and shares. We're not going to go into detail now, but I will mention to you that that is a lot easier these days to be able to be an investor in your own right, rather than having a manager, someone to do that for you. Anyway, so that's the idea, is to build up your assets. And that is number 2. The third key that we need to look at in terms of obtaining financial independence is to save. And I think I mentioned already, pay yourself first. Save what you can. If you can save 10% of your income, then do. People might not be in a position, especially nowadays, to be able to save that, but then start a habit of saving, even if it's 100 Rand a month or 200 Rand a month or 3% of your income. Put that aside into an account where it's going to get some interest, like a money market account, or at least a bank account where it will get some interest. And your goal to start off with, I think, is to save about 15,000 Rand into an account that you can use for your emergency fund. On your notes, you'll see that there's a save 15,000 Rand, and that we've just kind of given an ear part figure. Maybe if you're overseas, it's $1,000 or euros, and enough money to cover any emergency. Your car tire might burst, or your oven might blow. You might have a medical emergency, and that you need enough in your account, a savings account, easily accessible, so that you can pay for of those emergencies. And we all have those emergencies. If you have had one recently, you might be feeling very stressed out because you've now had to use your credit card or borrow money and go into debt in order for that. So can you just imagine, if you've got a little bit of a buffer, you've got a pot where you've got that money in that you can use for those events that we can't tell if they're going to happen or not. Just a bit of a backup for your emergency. All right, your second part of saving, once you've got your emergency fund saved, we recommend that you save 6 to 12 months of living expenses. So your first target is to get to 15,000. Your second target is to get quite a lot higher. Start with 3 months living expenses, build it up to 6 months, build it up to 12 months. And I must say, until recently, we used to teach that it's good to have 6 months of living expenses. But with the experience that we've all had with the pandemic, we know that in cases like this, if you had a backup fund or a savings account with easily accessible up to 12 months of living expenses, then perhaps you wouldn't be in a situation. A lot of people have had to lose homes, have had to sell vehicles, furniture, and do all sorts of other things to earn income because of losing jobs and income during this very tough time. So it's not a quick process. It's going to take you some time, but it certainly is worth working towards, and it's just a slow, plodding steps that you can put as much as you can away until you have that buffer in your account. The next step is to pay off any debt that you might have. If you have got car debt and home loans, those are probably your biggest debts. A lot of you might have higher purchases. If you have credit card debt, I would say that is your first debt to get rid of, because if you look at the interest rates that you are being charged on that credit card, it's really not worth it. You are paying so much more for that item that you put on your credit card. So I know everybody's in a slightly different situation, but no matter where you are, yes, you can get out of debt, and there are a lot of systems and programs easily available to show you how you can get out of debt. But if you are in a lot of debt, the most important thing is to get some help if you are in a lot of debt that you're not sure of how to get your head above the water, and then also have a plan to do that and then stick to it. Once you're out of debt, you will feel the relief, and you will be able to move on with your life. Just a little sideline in terms of your car debt. If you have bought a car and you've taken a loan for that, I urge you just to try and pay that car off as quickly as possible, and then to try and save money for your next vehicle and pay it cash, rather than get into that car debt cycle, which is very easy to do. Just do a few numbers and work out what you'd be paying in interest and what you could be paying at the bank at the end of the day after you've paid off your vehicle for 5 years, and you'll be surprised how much more you're spending for that. But I think people just don't take the time, or not really wanting to know that, because it's convenient to take out a loan for that. But once you're out of that car debt circle, Then all you do is pay yourself what you would be paying the bank into an account, and then when your next vehicle is due, you buy your car cash and you're paying that money back into your account rather than paying the bank. Also, your home loan, pay it off as quickly as possible. Just a little story about my first home. We ended up buying a home that was probably 30% more than we figured we could afford, but after house hunting for months and looking at home after home every weekend, we would pack our lunch on a Friday night and go looking for houses and earmark all the houses in the papers. Didn't have an internet then. And go looking for houses. And when we found a home that we fell in love with, we actually walked out and said, we aspire to own a home like this one day. We didn't hear anything else, but the agent got back to us a couple of months later. The home hadn't been sold. They dropped their price, and we ended up buying a home that perhaps we shouldn't have because it was out of our budget. But what we did do was set a goal to pay off that home loan in 5 years instead of 20 years. And we had no idea how. I was a first year earning in my first year. My husband had recently started a business. We had no idea how it was going to be possible to pay it off. But because we wrote down the goal and we worked towards that, we were actually able to pay off our first home in about 5 years and 5 months. So don't think anything's impossible. It certainly is possible if you just put your mind to it and have a goal and write it down. The fifth key to getting out of financial stress is to close your circle. And I think once we have defined how much we need, it makes it easier for us to reach that goal. And a question that we should ask ourselves regularly is, how much is enough? As I've mentioned before, we often get to a point where we get an increase. We think that our increase is going to save all our problems, and within 6 to 12 months, we're back in the same problems, fighting the same battles, still with the debt, etc. So find out how much you need. Decide what makes you happy. Is having a bigger home or a bigger property, is that something important to you? Do you really need that? Is driving a very fancy, expensive car important to you? And if it is, then that becomes something that you need in your life to make you happy. But in terms of closing your circle, we all have needs in our lives. Our needs are really our food and our shelter and your basic requirements to live every month. But we also have desires, things that we would really like. We'd like to go on a holiday. We'd like to be able to take someone out of school and take a 6-month trip with them or something. And then we all have dreams. And at the moment, your dreams might be way out of your comfort zone of where you're wanting to go. But if you're dreaming of owning a yacht or being able to travel for a year and just take time off, have some idea of what it is and how much you need for that. And then it's easy to know what you're aiming for and to reach that target. In your notes, there's a little exercise there where you can work out what your financial freedom number is. I'm not going to go through it in detail now, but it's also an idea of knowing how much you need in the bank to be able to live. How much do you need to become financially free? And it's a different number for everybody because you will have different needs, different desires, a different lifestyle that you want. And then that is the number that you need to save and put aside or invest, have in your pot, your financial freedom pot, where you will be able to live off the interest and not touch the capital. And I'm not going to go into too much detail there, but I think that's a very useful number to know because a lot of people don't know. They're working and working and working, and they're not sure what stage they can retire at. So if you're in the later stages and you know that you can retire at some stage, but you don't know how much you need, then use that little exercise in the notes there to work out if your investments has reached that number. You know that you can then draw enough money to live on every month without going into your capital, and that will support you into however long you're going to be living for. There are a few other things that come into it that we're not going to go into detail, but that is just a basic outline of that. All right, so that is number 5, which is close your circle. And then number 6 is once you've got enough savings, number 6 is to start investing. and this is an area where we can dive deeper into. I do a couple of courses on investing, but once you've saved enough money, you can start looking at investing. There is a huge amount of information available on that. I must say, we invested in properties early on in our lives, and made a few good choices, which enabled us to live a lifestyle that we wanted to, get a passive income from rental income, and that was not a very difficult thing to do right from the early stages when we weren't earning that much, just because we made some good choices and decided what to do with our money. So the main thing is, if you're still young, start early. The earlier you start, the better. Invest regularly on a monthly basis, and then just keep it simple. You don't have to get too detailed or involved, especially early stages. For some people like myself, not financially minded, and I think that if I can work out a system to invest, then anybody can do that. There is a simple strategy that you can do that, to just put aside investing every month, and you can start with as little as 200 or 300 Rand a month. If you want more information, I'll be happy to chat to people. Unfortunately, we don't have time now to go into those details. But I've learned that it's much easier now than it was when we got married a few decades ago, and it's possible for anybody. I know my young adult children are all on Easy Equities or ETFSA, and they are investing on a regular basis in equities and exchange traded funds and tracker funds, so or index trackers. So it is very easy, and it's easy enough for younger people to do it, and for older people who have not learned to be able to do that. So just know that it is possible for anybody. If you are saying now that you can't invest any money, you don't have enough money to put into an account now, then I think just go back and look at your finances, see where you can skimp a little bit of money. It might even be worth downsizing your lifestyle, moving into a cheaper apartment, paying less rent, driving a cheaper car, and trying to find some way of increasing your income slightly, so at least you'll be able to put away 1% or 3% of your income every month, and then you can grow that. Just one way of getting over that as well, a suggestion is that when you get your next increase, pay it forward. And so when I get my next increase, I'm going to increase the amount that I'm investing. So if I'm investing 2% now, I'm going to add another 3% of my income when I get that increase, so that I can start putting more away for my future. It does take a little bit of commitment and a bit of discipline, but the short-term hassle for doing it is certainly worth it in the long run. And then the seventh thing, finally, is to give. And a key to being really financially free is the freedom that you will find when you can give. I think the greatest joy comes from giving. And there are many very wealthy people who are not happy because they have had dreams and they've filled their lives with things for themselves and become a little more materialistic. But the people that are the happiest are those that are giving the most. And there are some very wealthy people who earn a lot but who give a lot. And there is this huge freedom in being able to just randomly give when you want to give and as much as you want to give. And I think that's a great goal to aspire to. But don't wait until the step. Don't wait until you're financially free before you start giving, because you'll find real joy in being able to give now. And whether you can give financially, or of your time, or your talents, or your experience, or even your knowledge, there's always something that you can give to someone who has less than you. And I think that's where you will start to really appreciate and enjoy being a little bit more free with your time and having the right attitude towards your whole savings. So that really is just a very brief overview and a touch of the iceberg on things that you can do, or steps in terms of becoming financially free. But I hope you're encouraged to know that it's possible and within reach of anybody. And if you start deciding to take control of your future in terms of your finances today, it's going to be a great journey. And I've learned a lot along the way. I've learned from mistakes. I've learned from experience. But most of all, I've learned from some of the top people in the world who are so freely giving their information available now. And I'm sure you've realized also during this time that we've had opportunity to spend more time at home, and even the summit, what a great opportunity to learn from people around the world from what they've learned. And it excites me to be able to share a little bit of my knowledge with you. I do run some 2-day courses and 1-day workshops to take you a little bit deeper into that. But I hope I've given you an overview of what you can do, and I hope that the notes will help. And just know that if you make that decision today, that you want to take control of your financial freedom, it is possible. And you can live a much deeper, richer, more fulfilled life by knowing that you will never stress about money and finances again. So thank you for staying with me during this time. Enjoy the rest of the presentations and the talk, and all the best for your future and controlling your destiny.